Okay, Andrew?
Andrew Miller, Member of Parliament. Two short questions, if I may. The first is, you'll be aware that in the field of research around ionising sources, one of the most difficult debates there has been determining whether there is a low level threshold to accept or not. That's been going on within the OECD for some 20 years. I've been part of it. I've spoken at two conferences on it myself. Yet you seem to rather rapidly have come to a determination that there is no low-level threshold, safe threshold, in this field. I'd like to see the scientific basis on which that decision has been arrived at. My second point is, in a sense following on from the observation just now, we live in the Western world in a world of electromagnetic sources, ranging from the vacuum cleaner, the washing machine, all the tools around our houses, fast-moving electric motors around us. How can you be certain that your American-based controls, living in that world, are genuinely controls? Would your science not be more credible if your control population were people who were not exposed to any of modern forms of electromagnetic source?
If you can find them.
Well, I mean, Africa, yeah.
So that kind of experiment may just not be possible.
Of course it's possible.
Oh, you think that? Is it possible?
Well, right now, I mean, I think that finding an area where you don't have information carrying radio waves is very difficult. You know, if you look at 50 years ago, we had radio waves, television signals, for example. And, you know, you'd have an antenna on top of a mountain that was carrying signals to the antenna on top of your house, and then it was hardwired. And what's happened with the information carrying radio waves of the cell phone is you brought those information carrying radio waves to the street. And there are virtually no areas where you have this technology where you do not have information carrying radio waves. And that is why we are so concerned. We have a paper coming out in about 45 days that draws a very strong correlation between exposure to information carrying radio waves and autism. And this will be the first paper that actually shows a mechanistic underpinning for that association. And our hypothesis there is that in the last 5 to 8 years, it is the high concentration of information carrying radio waves that is triggering autism in these young children who have a combination of a genetic predisposition and a load of heavy metals that probably associated with vaccinations. And that when information carrying radio waves are triggering active transport channels shutting down, the metals get trapped inside the cells. And then you have the environmentally induced genetic change again that carries on to the daughter cells. We have clinical data that shows that when you take the electromagnetic radiation exposure away and you put these children through detox, very aggressive detox over a period of 40 to 50 weeks, that the heavy metals clear based on molecular weight. The lower molecular weight chemicals clear first, heavy metals, and then as the active transport channels open, you finally get mercury. And when mercury is eliminated, the symptoms begin to reverse.
Andrew? What do you think of that?
Well, I'm intrigued, but I still don't hear the answer because your controls seem to presuppose that any electromagnetic source that does not carry data is safe.
No, I'm not presupposing that. Okay, so let me answer that. Up at in the ionizing radiation window, what we're assuming is that there is some threshold for clinical effects from ionizing radiation. because we're all exposed to ionizing radiation by background, lightning, radon, that type of thing. So that our assumption there is that there must be some safe level that does not prescribe clinical disease, because we all don't have clinical disease and we're all exposed. So I'm talking about clinical, I'm not talking about disease mechanism threshold, clinical. The same is true in the ELF window. We know that the mechanism of harm in the ELF window is direct magnetic impact, and that impact is at the gap junction level, and it disrupts intercellular communication as a first level pathology. So that we have an understanding, but in both of those cases you have thresholds, practical clinical thresholds. But where you have an exposure that triggers a cell membrane reaction that is irreversible, you see what happens is that once the protein sensor recognizes the information carrying radio wave, then the interpretation that this is a foreign invader, leading to the closing down of the active transport channels and the consequent disruption of intercellular communication, that's irreversible. So that all you need is recognition to begin the process.